Sometimes I like to joke when I was growing up that Chick-fil-A wasn't my second home, it was my home, and it was my family. Inside the Dorff house, my dad didn't draw sharp distinctions between employees and owners or customers and family. In his mind, everyone who stepped through those doors was special. Everyone he met was someone he could build a personal connection with. As a child, the people my dad befriended were like relatives to me and my siblings. My mother and all three of us kids would spend hours at that restaurant. We would laugh and play with the employees. We'd run around with the customers, completely comfortable with the idea that an extended, ever-growing family wasn't unusual. It was just how things were. And people in the community responded to this sense of family and shared some of their most important life moments inside the Dorff house.
We had our first date. We came to the Dorff house. My husband was just out of the Navy and didn't have any money. And so we had this date and came down here. And the last day that he lived, we came down here and had supper and enjoyed the conversation and everything. And he went home and fell. That's when he had a concussion and he died. And this was 5 years ago. And but this was what I had. Our whole family in this room after his funeral because of Truett and Jeanette. I wanted my family to see the place where Bill and I had spent so many happy hours. And it was a happy hour for us. Even though his body was gone, his spirit was still here. And I could hear him say, "Well, didn't we have a good time?" So this menu and Truett and Jeanette and this place are special to me for many reasons.
Dad didn't measure the results of these relationships on an Excel spreadsheet or a receipt or through any other form of accounting. It was personal. He did it because it was the right thing to do. He did it because it was fun and honest and true. He did it because he knew that in 1946, he was building more than a nice place to have a great chicken sandwich. And when he made his decisions, the people in his life recognized his motive and knew deep down why he decided to create emotional connections.
We learned that it wasn't going there just to get the good food and the fast service, but it was, he seemed to care. He seemed to have an interest in you as an individual. And so our girls grew up and we enjoyed Chick-fil-A and all of the things that have happened since then.
Today, the results of his personalized efforts are impossible to ignore. These days, I go to the Dorff house whenever I get a chance. I go because it still represents to me what this company is all about. Inside, there's a sense of family and a sense of fellowship. These are not just customers. These are people that have known me for 40 years, men and women my father loves with all his heart, and who in turn love him back. One of my favorite relationships is the one my dad started so long ago with Eddie White, who was a team member at the Dorff house. It's difficult to pick just one Eddie White story, as his friendship has had a tremendous impact on both myself and my dad. But this one is perhaps my favorite.
Well, this is the whole thing. We had a personal relationship. Again, he only had the little restaurant that was here, the Hateville restaurant, and he was living next door in the big house at the time. As I was coming up to August to go to school, Mr. Cathy asked, "Well, do you have the clothes to wear to go to college?" And I said, "I have clothes." He said, "Well, do you have enough?" And I said, "I think I do." And he said, "Well, let me tell you what I've done. I've contacted some persons at Muses up in Atlanta on Peachtree Street." Now, folks, let me tell you, I'd never been to a clothing store on Peachtree Street in Atlanta. But he says, you go up there and they're going to be looking for you when you come in, and you get whatever you want to go to school, whatever clothes you want. And I don't know how much time I have to talk about this, but I can tell you it was amazing because when I walked in, they were waiting, "Are you Mr. White?" I said, "Yes, I am." "Well, Mr. Cathy wants you to get what you need to go to school." And I said, "Okay." So I went back and I think I got a pair of trousers and a coat, sport coat, and a shirt. And I said, "Okay, that's fine." He says, "No, he wants you to get enough to go to school." I said, "Well, I've gotten it." He said, "No, that's not what he wants. He wants you to get enough." He says, "You need to get some other stuff." So I think I went back and got another pair of trousers or so. I just couldn't see myself getting another coat because I saw the price on the coat and I said, "I can't buy two of these things." But the guy and the salesperson said, "He wants you to get what you want." So I went back and got some more shirts, some stuff. And he says, "What about underwear?" I said, "Underwear?" So he says, "Yes, you're going to have underwear." So I went back and I will tell you, my eyes were as big as golf balls because I've never seen such good-looking underwear in my life. But I wound up getting some. He said, "Well, he wants you to get that. He wants you to get whatever you need, the underclothes, the outer clothes, and everything." So my first clothes going to college came from Truett Cathy.
My father was close to him. He knew how important college was to him. So without any ceremony or fanfare, he helped him get the clothes that he needed. It was a small gesture that probably didn't cost my father much, but it was never about the amount of money. It was about the message. And the message Eddie heard that day when he got those clothes to wear to college for the first time was personal and true. You are important to me. And how Truett treated Eddie was a result of how Eddie treated the customers at the Dorf House. My dad always felt that action was the best way to set an example for his employees and family. That's why some people still get bags of fruit once a year from him. Few people know that, but every year my dad still mails bags of fruit to people he's made deep connections with over the years. He kept a list of names and personal needs for years, and whenever he had a little extra of anything, he would go to that list and share. Little things, big things, he would just share. It was how he said more than words could. My dad made it personal. That's why 40 years later, the same people return to the Dorf House to talk with him and eat a good chicken sandwich. That's why regardless of distance or other food options, people came back to the Dorf House. They're not just returning to a restaurant, they're traveling to a family reunion. That's the power of making it personal. It makes everything we do bigger than a great chicken sandwich. It makes everything we do bigger than a clean, friendly restaurant. It makes everything we do about family and friends and strong emotional connections. And that's precisely what my dad has taught us to do for all these years. As I think back, that's how Dad fundamentally built this business. He made it personal, and by doing so, he made friends, and they invited their friends. And Dad made it personal for them, and they invited their friends, and Dad made it personal for them as well. I think you get where I'm going with this. Dad made it personal, and that's how he's grown this company for over 60 years. My story starts with my dad. He made it personal. He made emotional connections, and he knew that we could change lives by the way we treat people.